Today, we're going to crack open a secret playbook. It's the one the best leaders use when everything, and I mean everything, goes wrong. And here's the thing, their secret isn't having one perfect plan. It's knowing which of three totally different plays to run when a crisis hits. Let's dive in.
So put yourself in this situation for a sec. It's pure chaos. What's your gut reaction? Do you immediately take charge? Do you start calling everyone you know? Or do you pull the team together for a brainstorm? Your answer, well, it might reveal more than you think.
Because this gets to the heart of it, right? The very best leaders understand that crisis response is absolutely not one-size-fits-all. They don't have a single rigid plan. They have a whole playbook. And the real skill is knowing exactly which play to call when the heat is on. So, to figure out this playbook, researchers went to one of the most complex, high-pressure places imaginable, the factory floor. And they focused on these unsung heroes of the whole operation, the first-line managers, or FLMs for short.
Simply put, these are the folks in the trenches. They're the ones who have to take the big, shiny corporate strategies and actually make them happen, amidst machine breakdowns, supply chain issues, and constant pressure. They live in the world of work as done, not just work as imagined.
Now, the first thing the researchers noticed was that these managers are putting out fires all day long. But, and this is so important, not all problems are created equal. There is a world of difference between a little everyday hiccup and a true line-stopping crisis.
And this model just lays it out perfectly. Levels 1 and 2, that's just the daily noise, Minor adjustments, planned meetings, the stuff you can handle. But level 3, whoa, that is a whole different animal. These are the completely unexpected events that bring everything to a screeching halt. And that's where the playbook really matters.
So, the researchers just watched. They saw how the best managers handled these level 3 meltdowns, and they spotted a pattern. It wasn't just one approach, it was three. Three completely different plays they pulled from their mental playbook depending on the kind of disruption they were facing. Let's break them down.
All right, play number 1. Let's call this one the negotiator. You pull this play out when the crisis isn't about a broken machine, it's all about people and resources.
So here's the scene. A bunch of people called in sick, but you've also got a mountain of new orders coming in. The math just doesn't work. You don't have enough skilled people to get the job done. And what's great here is you can see this complex web of relationships the manager has to navigate, like, instantly.
The negotiator doesn't just start barking orders. That won't work. Instead, they cash in their social capital, the trust they've built up. They're on the phone with other managers, figuring out, okay, who on your team can do this? Can I borrow them for a few hours? It's a high-speed dance of coordination and persuasion.
Okay, but what if the problem has nothing to do with staffing? What if it's a major technical failure, a big safety issue? Well, you can't negotiate your way out of that. You need a totally different approach. And that brings us to play number 2, the commander.
I mean, just picture this. A piece of equipment literally falls from the ceiling, spraying coolant everywhere. The line is down and people are at risk. This is not the time to build consensus. This is the time for clear, decisive action, and this flowchart shows you exactly what that looks like.
The response here is pure procedure. Secure, escalate, assemble, learn. Every single step is part of a well-rehearsed drill. The commander's power comes from a predefined system, established routines, and a trained task force that knows exactly what it needs to do.
Okay, so we've got the negotiator and the commander. But what happens when you face a problem that is so new, so complex, that there are no procedures? What do you do then? Well, that's when the manager has to become the improviser.
This is such a fantastic and messy example. The customer has requested parts from 2 competing companies that, well, they don't work together. And the crazy part is, no one made a mistake. Design did their job, purchasing did theirs. But the final product is physically impossible to build. No one is to blame, and no one has a clue how to fix it.
So what does this manager do? They break all the rules. They become a self-appointed project manager, stepping way outside their formal job description. They start bypassing the normal hierarchy, calling people in design and purchasing, connecting folks who don't normally talk. Their only focus is the goal: solve this impossible problem and get the product out the door. And this is the whole point, right here. Just look at the difference between the commander and the improviser. One follows the rules to the letter, the other has to break them. One relies on the hierarchy, the other goes around it. One solves problems you've seen before, the other solves complex surprises you've never seen before. You just can't use the commander's playbook for the improviser's crisis.
So what does all this mean for any organization, not just a factory? Well, it means we really have to rethink how we prepare our leaders for chaos.
Now this model is really interesting. Those red lines represent the old way of thinking. Safety by compliance. It's all about enforcing rules to avoid errors. But the blue lines show us a new way. Safety by resilience. This is about being able to adapt to surprises, to improvise, to learn. It accepts that the real world will always be different from the plan on paper.
The ultimate lesson is that you need both. You absolutely have to train your people to be excellent commanders, with clear procedures for the problems you know about. But you also have to give them the autonomy, the trust, and the support to be improvisers when that rulebook is no longer useful.
And that's the question I want to leave you with. When a true crisis hits, when all the procedures are useless, who are the people in your organization who step up and just figure it out? And more importantly, have you created a culture where they feel empowered to do that? That's the real secret to building a resilient organization.